record to the cloud. Okay, there we go.
Am I sharing screen?
Yeah, you're sharing screen.
Okay.
Wait, so to the people that are starting to watch recording, we're doing Hack School 2, going over JavaScript and Node.js. Okay, now let's go.
Yes, JavaScript, Node.js. Okay. So yeah, again, we're assuming that you guys haven't had much programming experience. So this is where we're going to take it very slow in the beginning, and then it's going to ramp up like exponentially. So here we go. So what is a variable? You can basically think of a variable as a sort of container. And so in JavaScript, it's loosely typed, meaning that you don't give each variable a type definition. So this variable 1 can be set to a string, right? Called Pikachu or anything you want, really. So we can just reset 1. We can define 2 to equal 2 on the same line that 3 is equal to Bulbasaur. And you just kind of keep going when programming line by line, setting variables, changing variables. You can set functions. And yeah, so does anyone know what would be printed if I printed C? Oh, the repo. So yeah, anyone can like speak up or like type on the chat. Yeah. What do these 2 lines print? A function object? That's true, yes. So console log dot of C will print basically brackets and it'll say function. And so it like defaults printing the type. And it will also print uses absorb. Yeah, Anish is correct. Because we are calling C by putting the parentheses. So, all right, go to the next. So let var and const. In JavaScript, in like some old documentation, you may be seeing people using var, but nowadays we mainly use let and const. So for let, when you define something with let, basically what you're saying is this variable can change. So whereas const is more of this variable will be this value and is not allowed to change. So if you're familiar with Java, const is more like final, and let is more like int or string or something like that. Except it's loosely defined, so it could be an int or a string. So yeah, I was just walking through this, right? Let Pokemon T equal water. You can't define Pokemon T with let again, or else there's an error. But you can use Pokemon T, and you can redefine Pokemon T inside of a different scope. So basically what scope is your set of braces. And so this Pokemon T is dark, but only for the length of this if statement. So that's why when walking through the code, Pokemon T is water. This is true, so Pokemon T, a different variable, is dark. And we print water because of the scope. And then const. So when you define const in Pokemon T, you can't, it's in the namespace basically. You'll learn what that means in later classes. You can't redefine Pokemon T again in a different scope, like a lower scope. So this will give an error actually if you still have the if statement. And yeah, so there we go. Oh yeah. So yeah, as you can see, there are semicolons on all of these lines, and that is important to remember. Please don't forget semicolons. Technically in JavaScript, you don't they're not necessary, like your code will run, but please use them. It's much easier to read. So yeah.
Okay, so types for different variables are pretty much the types of data you're going to be storing. So on the right side, if you see the first one, type of 2, it's a string because of the quotations, but below type of 8 means it's a number. Type of true is a Boolean, which means it's either true or false. The one underneath represents a number. There's also type of a function. Type of Pikachu is undefined. And all of the ones below that are different types of objects. You can operate on all of these types with the things listed on the left. For example, console log 8 plus 5 will add the 2, make it 13, but then console log 8 plus string 2 will do something different. I believe it'll do like 8 2. Console log 8 plus 5 plus x also does something different. You can test these out. And there is also these different operators. Yeah. So on the next slide, what do you think will be printed here? Okay, someone said false. That is correct because they are not of the same type. So you're comparing an int to a string and those aren't the same. Oh wait, it'll be true, yeah, because the 2 equal signs means it checks equality through values, so 5 and 5 are the same. But if you do 3, it'll be checking the values on types. So the values are the same, but the types are different. So keep that in mind when you compare with a different number of equal signs.
Okay, so one very common thing you'll see in basically all programming languages are loops. And so you guys will see an example in the next slides, but so a loop will let you execute lines of code multiple times in a row. And so you can see these are common uses for loops. There's a for loop, a while, do while, for in, which goes through the properties of an object, for of, which loops through values of an iterable object. And you'll learn what an object is later, so don't worry about that. See us yet? So yeah, here's some examples of loops. So typically you'll have an index and it'll be a number. And so this will continue to print and iterate. So it'll print 0 through 3 because end will be 0. So console log is 0. And then it'll increment. Then it'll be 1, 2, 3. So that's basically the basic structure of a loop. You have for loops. This is strangely formatted, but basically you define a variable. You have a condition. So it's the same as this condition. And you iterate the variable in the same line. And so this prints the exact same thing. So this is an example of using of to go through an object. So this will print pika and char, which is through an array. And you can also do this with strings. So this prints each character of a string.
So functions are blocks of code that will perform tasks when invoked. Arguments are passed by value, and variables made of functions are local to the function. What this means is pretty much JavaScript is copying the values of the variables that are being passed in instead of like actually taking those values. So any change you make within the function to those arguments are not reflected outside. So when you go through this code, you can see the function boost is declared and the parameter is called power level. Within the function, you're declaring a local variable named power, where you're adding 5 to the power level, and then you're adding 1 to that, and then it returns power. So it's calling the functions below, so you can repeat those tasks over and over, but you're not actually changing the value of what's being passed in. Does anyone know what this prints?
Okay, so it looks like we got a lot of 11s, 7s, 17s in chat. Okay, let's find out. 11. Awesome. So, Teresa, do you want to?
Okay, so the reason why it prints 11 is originally the function first runs when you do const power equals boost 5, which means you're passing 5 in. So in the very first line of the function, you are declaring power to equal power level plus 5, which equals 10. And then power you're adding 1, so you get 11, and then you return 11. This means const power equals 11. So for constants or const variables, it means that does not change. So even though you're passing in boost power, it's not going to change that value. But also, because it's a function, whatever you change within that function will not be reflected outside. That's why you are printing 11 instead of 17.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah. So objects. These are extremely important. You need to understand what objects are. In JavaScript, sometimes you'll see JSON, so JavaScript object notation. And so basically what an object is an unordered collection of properties and methods. And when you define an object, you can use this to refer to itself. And this will be important later, so remember this. Anyway, so yeah, so when you define objects, you use key value pairs. So in this case, name is a key and pika is a value, string value. You have commas to separate each key value pair. And so this is like how you can create a Pikachu object, basically. So the values can also be objects themselves, which can get complicated, but it's really not that bad. So yeah, attacks here would be an array. They can also be functions. So in this case, right, the attack would be, you'd send in the opposite person, you'd subtract their HP from your power. So this power, right, is 50. And yes. Okay. So should I run this code? Yes, I probably should before you try. Okay. 1 second. So what will Pikachu.name? What do people think Pikachu.name will print? Yes, Pika. Awesome. Okay, so then now we're going through each, basically going through each attack of Pikachu. And so this line will just print, right, each of its attacks. And then what do people think that Pikachu.attacks will print? List of attacks. Yes. And then if you guys remember the vocab from earlier, what do you guys think object.keys? So object.keys, right, will print the keys of the object. So what do people think this will print? A little bit of vocab refreshment. Okay, well, basically, these are keys and these are values. So I believe it'll print name, type, power, HP, attack. Oh yes, good job, Ted. Exactly. And so yeah, you guys can try this out yourself. So the next thing we wanted to do was actually have you guys try this out. So if you guys could go to here, someone should pause the recording probably. And
all right, go for it.
Okay, cool. So we're going to move on to arrow functions. So arrow functions are anonymous functions or functions without a name. You'll see that on like the next slide. But basically the this keyword will allow the function to refer to the object that defined it. So can you go to the next slide? Yeah. So here you can see the very first line is function name equals parameter, arrow, multinum, all of that stuff. Oh wait, no, arrow and then function body. So basically it's just setting a function up with that. So all of these functions are equivalent. As you can see underneath is like a regular declaration of a function, but underneath that is multinum equals num1, num2 equals that function. So all of them are equivalent. So how do you convert this one to an arrow function? By converting it to an arrow function, can you go back a slide? Basically, do you see function multinum num1, num2? So that's a regular function, but what's underneath is the conversion to an arrow function. So instead of like the normal declaration, you're assigning it to like multinum. Okay, I think someone put the right answer in the chat. Yep, it.
Okay, yeah, so this is basically what we were looking for. So yeah, our parameter is the candy, and we're saying if the candy is greater than 20, then we're going to return a vol, and otherwise we're going to return more candy. So basically, arrow functions are like mini if else statements. Is basically what we were looking for. Okay, so callbacks.
Sorry, can I see the answer
Yeah,
again?
what's the question? You want to see this?
The replit answer?
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's the function name, the parameter, and then you're returning what's called a ternary, I suppose. And yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so basically I put this in here because like you're learning a lot right now. So anyway, and also Pokemon. So callbacks. Right, so callbacks are extremely important for just using in JavaScript. And so like you'll see it a lot in web development. And so here, right, function multinum, basically the goal is to multiply the numbers, and then we basically will, oh man, my head hurts right now. Okay, so it'll print, your Pokemon will heal, and then in this example will be 30 HP. Then you'll call the callback, which is heal, the function heal, and you'll pass in the Pokemon name, which is Pikachu, and the 30. So Pokemon.heal is like a supposed function if you had, right, like how we did with the challenges. If we had like a heal function, it would be like this, or similar to the attack function. So basically the idea of a callback is you send in parameters and then a callback function. And so in JavaScript, we pass by value. So you can pass the function itself, and you can call it by whatever you rename it to. So heal becomes callback. So callback, and then these are the parameters. So yes, that was very confusing, but callbacks will become more clear when they're actually useful. Oops. So now we've taught you guys what a callback is and everything that you basically need, you guys can go on to the next challenge, which is more difficult. So I think we should probably pause the recording so we can do that right now. Yeah, so we were just in the Discord and we were going over the Pokemon battle. So basically, if you're watching the recording, we were all live. We were all trying to figure out basically how to create this Pokemon battle. And this is thanks to Shrubin, we actually have a working prototype. And so, yeah, we're going to just quickly go over this, I suppose. And so here we go. Basically, the idea is you have attacks that you can use as you're playing as Ivy. And so I'm going to use an attack. And so you both start out with health 100. And it will pick a random value 0 to 20. Pikachu is basically an AI. So as you can see, Shrubin filled out the attack function for Pikachu. So the first thing you do is index the attacks. So you can choose from 0 or 1, or 2, sorry. And you choose the attack, and then you choose a random damage between, okay, I guess it's 10 and 30 now. And you call this function called damage from the attacker. And you call the function, and it's very similar to this, where they will lose health. And I believe it's this one right here. So then you're going to return what attack it used, and that's basically the attack function. So then we're going to go to Ivy, and these are like the default attacks, the health, power, type, etc. And damage function, again, you just use this dot health, subtract out the damage that is passed in. And again, this is from the attack function, which is a random integer from 10 to 30. And so then we're going to go through each of the attacks. We're going to see if the attack was what you typed in. And we're going to call the damage function again with the others. This is where, I mean, this now. And we're going to return the damage that was dealt. And this is basically the implementation for Pikachu and Ivy. So back in here, we have the winning conditions. So each time we print out the health, the what it attacked with, and
Thomas, real quick, can you reshare? I think it's frozen on my end. For some others, it's black. I don't know what's going on. Can you reshare?
Is it? Oh shoot!
I think you're good now. It was like completely frozen. Like, but now it looks good.
Oh, what the heck? Okay.
Shoot! I'm so sorry.
Weird. Okay. Never mind.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. I was basically just going through this file and explaining what the attacks damage do for each, and then the battle itself is in the index.js. So basically we go through and we see if Pikachu has died. And if it has, then we say IV1 and we return. So we end the battle and we do similar to that. We check to see if you have lost. And so we go through each question using readline, which is just something we imported, I think, right here. So readline will create an interface to read from the command prompt. And then, so we read the line, we name it attack, and we say like, if you did not attack, then wow, lame, and basically just lose. And if you did attack, then we say how you attacked, and we call the attack function, which is what I just went through. And we say the health of Pikachu. So we just quickly went through a game. Theoretically, you could just keep going until 0. I don't know why Control V doesn't work. That's very frustrating.
It's Control Shift V.
Of course. Thank you. So rip. I think that's supposed to be Pikachu. But anyway, so that's basically the game. Shrubin went through a much more eloquent way over the Discord, so that's why you should come live if you can. Okay, awesome. So wait, can you see my screen? Just by the way.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Okay, cool. We're going to move on to higher order functions, which are just functions that can accept another function as an argument or return a function as a result. Common examples include Array.prototype.filter, Array.prototype.reduce, and Array.prototype.map. We'll be going over those in the next few slides, but you can see these emojis kind of illustrate what will be going on. Okay, so for Array.prototype.filter, it basically creates another array that passes the test provided by the callback function. This is a great time to combine everything we've learned about callbacks and arrow functions. So you can see first the constant. It contains a bunch of different elements. And beneath that, we have const powerful, which we'll be using the Array.prototype.filter. So as you can see, you're passing in, you're passing in Pokemon where filter is acting on that. So what is considered powerful here and who is considered powerful?
Is it Shravan?
Yes, but it's also another one. If you look at the comparison Poke.level, it's greater than equal to 51. So it will be Shravan and Daniel. So basically, yeah. So for Array.prototype.map, you're creating another array with new values. Each value in the array is a map to another one, with each value changed by a certain factor. So again, we have the same constant Pokemon, but you're instead doing .map. Basically, you are changing the Poke level by half. So what do the values change to? Yeah, it does divide by 2. And then the emojis show you're cooking all the different types of food by passing it through map. Yeah. And then similarly, reduce will be changing an array. It creates a single value with a return value through each element. So here it's doing Pokemon.level plus total. So what is going on here? reducing by total level.
So real quick, I want to interject for a bit. So wait, can you go back to the last slide? I just want to explain something. So you see pokey.level over 2. So just so note that division in JavaScript is not like you don't floor the value. So 51 over 2 would be 25.5 because there's no like explicit integer versus float types. So it would just be 25, 25.5, 26. In languages like Java or like C++ that are strongly typed, it would be 25, 25, 26. So I just wanted to note that. So how do you floor it? So there's probably, there's a, there you go, math.floor.
Is this function reducing the Pokemon's level or increasing it?
So yeah, so basically it will total the levels, so it'll add them all. Someone asked, can you use // And you can. Oh well, sorry for sorry, // is a comment in your code.
Yeah, but one thing to know is Python has floor division with //. So
yeah,
that's like a Python specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So is the answer 103 or 153 for this?
Yep. Okay. So promises, these are an object that may produce a value at some later point. They're used for handling asynchronous code and for handling errors. We'll get more into that. So basically, what is asynchronous programming? Synchronous means each line is called and executed one after the other, as you can see in the graphic. The first block is occurring, and then it has to wait until that's completed before it moves on to the next one. Asynchronous code is taken out of this execution flow, meaning that some commands don't have to wait for others to finish. As you can see, they're both occurring. Async programming is useful when loading images on a web page, calling from a database, or reading a file. This is where promises come into play. As you can see, there are life cycles. So in this example, you can see that a promise is created where it says new promise. The promise is constructed using that new keyword. So there will be 2 parameters, resolve or reject. Technically, you can rename these to anything, but just note that the very first parameter will be resolve and the second one will be reject. Basically, when we walk through this, you have the variable best Pokemon equals Pikachu, and then you're comparing if best Pokemon is equivalent to Pikachu. Again, you have the 3 equal signs, which means it's comparing value and type. Since they're both strings, it'll be true. And since that's true, it goes and resolves, yay. And that means the reject error, which is in the else, is not going to be handled here. You can think of this as like resolving is sort of like the return value of a function.
Okay, so yeah. So async await. So async, right, is like asynchronous, and it will basically, when you define a function with async, you're creating a function. I'm sorry, you're creating a function that will return a promise. And so whenever you use async, you use await. So it will basically just have is attacked wait for attack to resolve. So it's a way to sort of like wait for calls to happen. So you can wait for a database lookup or something like that. You can wait for something to load. There's lots of reasons that we've had in the beginning for why you'd want to wait in your code. And so in this example, we use a set timeout that will wait a second to resolve. So set timeouts, I think it's deprecated, but I'm not 100% sure. You use this in like HTML, for example, to wait for a certain amount of milliseconds. And so yeah, so as Shriven's pointing out, you're gonna have to wait for like API calls and stuff like that a lot in web development. So yeah, basically this will print out attacked after 1 second is what this will do. So then and catch. So you use then and catch after a promise as well. And so what this allows you to do is make a call like to an API or something, receive value, and then do it again multiple times. It does become a little bit finicky if you're not used to promises. So basically you just can attach .thens, and after you make a asynchronous call, and so you do something with a result, you get a new result, you do something else with that result, you get a newer result, and you keep going. And if at any time there's an error in this process, you use .catch to catch the error. And usually you wouldn't do new error, but you can do new error. So like, basically that'll just throw the error to you. So, okay. So unfortunately, examples can get a little confusing with this, but for example, right, if we had an attack like how we just did with Pokemon, you could create a promise that attacks with a random int when it resolves. So you would do claw.then, right? So if 5 is equal to 5, which it is always, you'll instantly resolve and you'll return a random int between 0 and 10. You'll pass that to a different function, which also returns a promise. And that basically will just subtract HP. Like this would be in a class or something, how we had like a Pokemon class before, function. So yeah, this will get the value 0 through 10, subtract it from the HP. It'll respond with the HP, and it'll show you, right, then health left would be HP. So this will print the health left. So you can theoretically print like anywhere between 100 and 90 if you had 100 health to begin with. But the reason why you might want to do this is instead of random.int, you could call like an API to figure out, oh, how much should this specific Pokemon do? Deal damage, for example. So yeah.
Cool. So we're gonna get into Node.js. Basically, Node is a JavaScript runtime environment. We'll explain that in the next slide. That means you'll have a client and a server. So what are these? A client is what is happening on your computer locally, whereas server side is what's happening on someone else's computer, like the web server. Front end is what the user sees, HTML, CSS, images, whereas backend is what the user will not see. It's like all of the database things.
Okay, so NPM, it stands for the Node Package Manager, and it's really useful, right? Oh, npm.js.com. So it'll let you use packages. There's like thousands of packages that you can use for your JavaScript development. And so whenever you do a Node project, like a what's called a MERN stack or any other type of stack using Node, you really want to use NPM to for your packages. So a really very common one, never mind. Okay, so first you have to create the project. And so Jesus Christ is Jason Bourne, because basically what you do is you type in an npm init or npm init-y, and it will create what's called a package.json file. And basically, once you do this, you will get prompted like, what's the name? What's the version? Does it have a description? What's the main file? Any scripts, keywords, etc. And so this will also let you install dependencies, which are what npm packages are basically. And so yeah.
Yeah, here are some npm commands you can use in command line to like get yourself started. Npm install express will install express and add it to the dependencies list on your package.json. Npm install a node on dev dependency will install nodes that and dev dependency and add it under package.json. If you already have that, but no dependencies are installed, you can just run npm install and it'll install all the necessary dependencies.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. I just really quickly wanted to go through, right? So what you would do typically is you'd have a terminal open, type npm init, and you'd name your package, right? And then your version, description, etc. And so what this does is it creates package.json, and package.json is basically just this file. And so yeah, and sorry to cut in about that. So yeah, there's a ton of different npm modules that you can use. And so yeah, be lazy.js, like what, right? It's just a fancy way to load images. And so yeah, there's a ton of different npm modules that you are definitely going to be familiar with. So right, like Express for making servers easily, and then basically just all these. So Passport is like verification. Create React app. Well, you're going to be doing that in the next tutorial or next two, I'm not sure. And then bcrypt is like encryption. .env allows for .environment packages and stuff like that. Mongoose is for like Mongo, which is a database system. And yeah, so I really quickly wanted to go through what FS is. It's a built-in module, so you don't have to do like npm install FS or something like that. And also it's the same with readline. So, but say you did want to get readline, you would just search for it and you'd read the documentation. This is actually a different one, but you could do npm install line by line, as we were saying. And so yeah, so this is like how to read from a file basically. Yeah, is a very funny one. Is that actually public? Oh, sure it is. Yeah, Angular is even. Modulus 2. There are some funny packages, but anyway, so FS stands for file system, and you can use fs.readFile to read from files. So for example, if we wanted to do this process, basically, you could just actually get this. Oh my God.
You can also Control-Shift-V for that.
Not in insert mode or something. What the? Why is it?
You just open up in VS Code.
Yeah. So yeah, if you have VS Code set up properly, you should be able to just type code, read.js, like code, the name of your file. So yeah, this is a good time, as Daniel was saying, to code along as well, actually. So let's see. Basically, the first thing you want to do is require fs. In React, you also import. So basically what we're doing here is saying read from a file called coolestpokemon.txt, and the encoding is UTF-8. So thank you. And so wait. We use an arrow function for simplicity. Sorry. And we just want to
Oh,
say,
Thomas, it's a typo.
There's
You have
typo.
UTF-8 instead of, you have UTF-9 instead of 8.
I do.
In your read file, yeah.
Wow. Anyway, so yeah, this will just read from the file and print out if there's an error, for example. And so we need to create a new file. We'll call it Pokemon, or wait, coolestpokemon.txt. Oh wait, that just made it to. This is why. Save as. Oh, never mind. Interesting. Okay, so yeah, someone named some Pokemon for me. We got Pikachu in the chat. Charizard. Daniel. Okay, so I'm thinking Henry. Okay. Piplup. Trojan. Why am I a Pokemon? Because you are a Pokemon, Daniel. Why?
We're all Pokemon.
Okay, so this is good example. I forgot Lucario, but so the next file, right? In wait one second. Wait, I think it's supposed to be a new file. Shoot. I totally forgot. Hold on one second. This is yeah, I think it's in the same actually. We're just gonna create some files. Oh, shoot. Okay, so basically you saw this in the Pokemon example that we had. So readline lets you read from the terminal, and file stream lets you read from a file stream. So basically fs, when you're using it, you would say like fs npm documentation or something like that. And you can read up on how to use fs. So fs lets you change the directories and make files and read files and stuff like that. All right. So, here we're gonna read line. So this was from this package. And basically what readline lets you do is have a question, an async answer. I'm sorry, I think sorry. And you go through, so you create an interface to read from the text. You go through each line from the text. You change it to uppercase, and you look in this example, what we're doing is we're looking through each line and seeing if it matches what you type in the terminal. And if it does, then you say, oh man, this is awesome. Or it's not, it's pretty cool, but it's not the best. So I'm just gonna grab this code. Oops. Wait a second. I don't think, oh shoot. Pretty sure I can get rid of this actually for now. And so basically what ends up happening is you can do node and you can say like Pikachu is pretty, so you type in Pikachu, it's pretty cool, but not the best. And actually, I think I'm using a previous version. Oh yeah, I am. Jeez. Dang. Okay, I'm using the wrong version, but that's okay. Basically, if you typed in cat, then yes, I agree. Cats are pretty awesome. Okay. So yeah. Sorry if that was a little confusing, but yes, I love cats. Anyway, so yeah, the next presentation is on DOM manipulation in React. And so does anyone have any like closing comments, Teresa, something like that? No. Daniel, Shrubin.
I mean, yeah, like thank you everyone for coming. Yeah, that was definitely confusing. Like that, like we know it's confusing, and like we mentioned, like we're trying to open your minds here with these workshops. So it's meant to be tough, like it's meant to be a battle. Like we'll make it a lot easier, and we will by getting your feedback. So I don't know, Daniel, do you have a feedback form that you have?
Yeah, so I just posted it in the
Yeah. So everyone, please like give us your feedback because we know like we're trying to change stuff up during each workshop, and it really helps if you provide us like what we're doing right and like what we're doing wrong. But yeah, for next week we'll be doing our React workshop, and we'll be hopping back onto the Pokemon generator. So what's going to happen is we're going to convert everything we have in HTML into React. So it's exciting.
I would recommend if you are unsure about some of these JavaScript concepts, like I'll say that this workshop is pretty important for learning the basics of JavaScript. So if there's stuff that you're confused on, or like ask us like after this workshop's over, or ask us in Discord at any time. And especially like if you're watching, like if you're watching the recording, those of you, I'm pointing at you.
Yes,
watching the recording.
Please come through the Discord and like our office.
Yeah, make sure you ask questions because it's really fundamental for the next 4 workshops. 4 workshops, the next 4 workshops. Yeah.
Yeah, I have office hours at 7 p.m. So if any of y'all have any remaining questions or were confused about anything during this workshop, come through to the Discord at 7 p.m. Thursdays.
Oh yeah, permissions.
Give me a quick second. Let me fix this.
Yeah.
Does anyone in the chat have any like any questions about anything while I try to fix this form?
Also, we may or may not be having a Kahoot next week that we'll give membership points with. Just may or may not. I'm unsure at this moment.
Yes.
Totally unsure at this point. Nothing is certain. Oh, check-in code is JSON born. Yes, Bryce posted it.
Can y'all try now? Feed me.
Yes, we're gonna stack Bryce with the.
Can someone go over a few of the slides right
Yeah,
now?
I'll hit you up.
We can
We could.
Or we
do
just do it
it
right
we can,
now.
we can end the
We still have
we
like
can end the
10
recording
minutes.
now, and then if you we can still stay in the Zoom call to go over stuff.
Yeah, if anyone has questions.
Okay, but for those of you in the recording, we're gonna end it now. Yeah. TY. So let me stop.